Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Ledwell and this is The Inspiration Show. Today on the show we're going to be talking about trauma. Now we're not necessarily talking about big trauma, but how even the smallest of traumas can actually change who you are and the direction that you take in your life. So please help me in welcoming my guest, Michelle Rosenthal. How are you, Michelle?
I'm fantastic, Natalie. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's always awesome talking to you because you actually you talk about a subject that sometimes we don't like to talk about. But the interesting thing is that you're approaching this from such a unique perspective because, as most of the people in our community know, we have a lot of programs and patterns and behaviors that we have got from past experiences and from childhood and so forth. And most of the times they come from events that have some kind of emotional charge around it and has some kind of a traumatic experience around it. So we're going to be pulling back the curtain and all of that today, which is awesome. So why don't we start first of all with just your background and your story?
Sure, absolutely. And you're so right. When we talk about trauma, there's big T trauma and little t trauma. So little t being those life challenges that are hiccups in the road that really disappoint us or make us upset, but we move through them and the whole time we stay functional. Versus the big T trauma, like accidents or illnesses, things like that, that really impair our ability to function for a little while or for an extended period of time. And so my journey to this moment here with you began in 1981 as just a 13-year-old kid who had this big, enormous, life-changing trauma, a very horrific illness that when I came out of the illness and I'd had a near-death experience and horrible things had happened to me in the hospital, and when I came out of the hospital, I knew I was going to make a full physical recovery, but emotionally, I just could not bounce back. I was very aware that I had been changed, my belief system, and that's really, I think, where we all end up focusing after a while. It was really rocked to the core. I no longer saw the world as a safe place. I no longer saw myself as safe or being in control. And those are two really important survival experiences, feeling safe and being in control. And when you lose those feelings, that's when things can really start to unravel. And so for the next 24 years, I descended into this horrible, dark space of despair and eventually was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And then I started what I affectionately call my healing rampage. I thought, I'm not living like this another minute. And of course, it doesn't happen overnight. But by the time I came out of my recovery, I realized there's so much to learn and understand about how trauma changes who we are from a psychological and emotional place and also from a neurophysiological aspect. And so bringing those pieces of information together can make a huge difference in how we move forward after any kind of challenging life experience, which of course we can do. We just sort of need a roadmap to get there.
Absolutely. So, most of us and people watching the show know what a big trauma is. But give me some examples of what a little trauma is.
Sure, a little trauma. You are working so hard, you have your eye on a promotion, and at the last minute you get passed over. And now you have to reassess. Someone was just telling me a story about this yesterday and how it has just put a halt on everything. It's like their professional life has come to a screeching halt because he had worked for 10 years to develop the position and his ability to rise in this company into this position that he wanted. And at the very last minute, the company said, you know what, we're going to outsource this. We don't need you anymore. And so not only was he not given the promotion he had worked so hard for, he's now out of a job. And so that's a big life challenge because then you have to reassess, okay, well, where do I go from here? But it is a little t trauma in terms of he's very marketable. He's going to be fine. He's just going to have to find a new place to go. So he's not going to descend into a place where he can't get out of bed in the morning. He just needs to move through this time that's uncomfortable and disappointing. So that's one example. Another example is you're in a relationship that you really hope is going, this person is the one, and 6 months down the road you find out they're not the one. Mm-hmm. So it can feel huge at the time, but in the scope of your life, it ends up being a little t trauma that's a hiccup in your ultimate destination. But again, you remain functional throughout it. And by that I mean you don't need psychological intervention. You don't need physical medication or anything like that. So
Yeah.
little t trauma being something that's not necessarily altering or threatening your physical ability to survive.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, because I think for me personally, if I had little things like this happening, not little, they're, you know, little as we're just calling them little T's for now, but they still
They
they're
feel big.
yeah, exactly. I find that I'll have a coping mechanism that pops up, and I shield myself or put up a facade and go, well, I don't want to get disappointed, and make out that everything's okay and kind of gloss over it. So is there, I mean, is certain things that we should be doing on how to handle these things?
Yeah, I think there are, and I think a lot of it has to do with how you ground yourself in that inner connection. Because it's how you see yourself, your identity, both in terms of your self-perception and the way you relate to yourself, and also in terms of how you present to the world, that allows you to stay grounded and connected to a source of courage and inspiration, motivation. We're always all trying to have more of that. It really comes from a source that's inside. So the more you can stay connected and grounded to your core self, the more you can more easily move through those challenges and successfully come out the other side with a momentum of resilience. You know, scientifically, resilience depends on self-esteem. In studies that they've done, increased resilience directly comes from self-esteem. So self-esteem comes from knowing that you are able, and able is a very important word, knowing you are able to succeed at things. And knowing you're able to succeed at things comes from knowing who you are, what your capabilities are. So if you sort of keep peeling the onion, at the very center of it all is this sensation of knowing who you are, this creation of an identity that feels right to you. And I think the more we stay connected to that place, the more we can avert any kind of disruption that comes from big or little t trauma.
Right. So that brings up a very deep question: is, well, who are we? So when we peel back the layers and we get to that point, are we our job and our house and our family and the material things we have in our life, or who are we really?
I think who we are, Natalie, is obviously every single one of us is unique and individual. So we each will have to come to our own personal I am statement. But I think who we are is a composite of all of those things. It's not I am, you know, I'm an author. But if I just were to say I'm an author, that doesn't really tell you who I am. It tells you what I do.
Right.
So I think we need to get away from saying what we do, which is a part of who we are. But if we're going to go to that most internal space, I think, to me, and this is just my personal opinion, I think who we are is what is most life-affirming about us. We are energy, right? And we expand in terms of life experiences and life-affirming things that make us feel good and joyful. So if we were to look at identity in terms of I am, and then you fill in the blank with what makes you feel most happy to be who you are. So in that sense, you can look at qualities. Like for myself, I would say I am joy. And I work every day to make, and I don't mean in a professional sense, I work every day coming from that place because I deliberately decided in my trauma recovery, actually, you know, we all see trauma as something horrible, and it is. But the gift that comes out of big or little t trauma is we have a chance to hit the pause button and to decide, who do I really want to be? And recreate ourselves. And so I created my post-trauma identity around this idea of joy. That's what I wanted to define me, the capacity for and quality of joy. And so I built a lifestyle, and you know, for me, one of the things that meant was I dance. And when I dance, I feel joy. And so I committed to dance every day, which for a long time I did. And I don't dance every day. I don't have the time anymore, but I do dance frequently because you have to live who you are. So it's not just enough to say I am and fill in your definition of what makes you feel most connected to who you are. You have to also live that at the same time. So the identity concept becomes not just what you cognitively know, not just what you verbally express, but what you physically experience and engage with.
Absolutely. And I love that because, you know, the thing is it's all about the questions. Because most of the time we don't ask ourselves the right questions. So rather than saying, who am I, which, you know, is a leading question, I think what's even more important is like, well, who do I want to be? Because we get to choose, you know, if there is something in our behavior or our patterns that is not serving us anymore, then we can choose something different. So is there some kind of a process that people can do to discover and go into this, or is it just merely just sitting down and asking the question?
I think you're right. I think the questions are really key. And I just, my new book that just released is called Your Life After Trauma, Powerful Practices to Reclaim Your Identity. And it's for big or little t trauma. And I just was talking, I did an interview yesterday, and someone was saying to me, the questions in this book just rocked my world. They are so deep and below the surface of what we usually do. And I worked really hard from that standpoint when I was writing the book to put together a process that leads you below the usual who am I questions, because that's not really where the answers are, as you already know. And I think the process, and the process that I laid out and in the book, but also that I've worked through in my own life to recreate the person that I wanted to be, and that I see work with all the clients that I work with, the process is very simple. It just requires coming down into a place of being willing to discover and explore those questions that are deeply internal and, as you so aptly identified, related to your choices and your actions. And so the 3 steps, and this is simplified, obviously it's a complex process, but the 3 steps in general overview are, number 1, you have to take a look back and acknowledge who you used to be. You know, who have you been in your past? Because often when we experience a trauma, big or little t, it changes us ever so slightly or enormously, and there's a disconnect from who we used to be. Well, that can be good because maybe, you know, I've spoken to a lot of people, they say, I don't want to go back to who I was. But then there are a lot of people you talk to and say, if I could only go back. So it's really important to acknowledge who you used to be and acknowledge what you loved about that self and find ways to bring that forward. So that's step 1. Step 2 is recognizing who are you today, because as much as we may feel frustrated with who we are today, or we are not able to really be who we want to be, it's easy to see the negative sides, but it's also really important to see, hey, on the other side, here are all the things I really love about myself, because it's in that base that you can start to build into the 3rd step, which is creating the blueprint for your future self. Really getting clear, you know this because Mind Movies is all about this, being able to achieve the objectives, your purpose, your mission that you choose has so much to do with your imagination and what you can see. And so the 3rd step is all about really being able to create an identity blueprint that then you say, okay, here's where I am today and there's where I'm going. And then the job is, how do I get there? And you know, the book is all about all of these processes and creating a gentle path that allows you just to sort of move through and shift and transform in those ways that are comfortable and manageable and at your own pace. And in the end, lead you to that self where you become exactly who you want to be and reach the success that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, and like I said, the book does. It goes into so many different amazing questions, and obviously much deeper than we could achieve in the 15 minutes that we have today.
I think we've been pretty deep.
I know. I think we did really well, actually. So, Michelle, if people want to connect with you and purchase the book, where can we send people to do that?
Absolutely. YourLifeAfterTraumaBook.com. And right on there you can see reviews of the book. We've got great and the positive reviews that are coming in. I just feel so blessed. They're wonderful. There's also a complimentary resource center right on the site where you can sign up and get free downloads of all the exercises in the book so that you can work at your own pace and work with me. I recorded all of them. So it can be a more personal experience than just reading the book. So YourLifeAfterTraumaBook.com.
Beautiful. And guys, if you click on the banner to the side there, if you're watching this online, or the banner underneath the video, if you're watching this on the app, it'll take you straight through to that website as well. So thanks again, Michelle. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, darling. Now, guys, I encourage you to share this video, and you can do that by clicking the Facebook and the Twitter share buttons on this page. Also, leave your email in the box on this page as well, so I can send you the Manifesting with the Masters video e-course. It's actually valued at $87, and I would love to send it to you for free. And so until next time, remember to live large, choose courageously, and love without limits. We'll see you soon.